Recently I have discovered a few bugs in our application, so before actually getting to the deployment, let's fix those bugs first. So one of the discovered bugs that we are going to fix in this lesson is related to the stopwatch. As we know, if we start tracking the time for a particular activity and then current hour changes, the stopwatch should be automatically stopped. But this is only happening in those cases when we have a timeline page open. And if we are being on another page, stopwatch will not be stopped. Let's reproduce this case. And to do this, we will need to modify current date object. So let's switch over to the time module, and right here inside today function, I'm going to modify the current day in the following way by assigning 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 55 seconds. So the current time will be 11:59 AM. And also to make this mutation work, we also have to modify the code inside of setIntervalClosure. Previously, we were manually creating date object based on the date that is stored inside of our reactive variable, and we were modifying this reactive date by adding 1 second. So this code executes every second, and this way every second we're getting new date assigned to the now reactive variable. So now if I'll start tracking the time, in a few seconds the hour will be changed and the stopwatch will be stopped. So this is an expected behavior, but if I'm going to do the same thing by starting stopwatch and then switching to a different page, as we can see, in 5 seconds nothing happens, even though the hour was changed. But stopwatch continues running, so let's firstly figure out what we do to stop the stopwatch if we are being on the timeline page. Inside timeline items timer module, we have this watch effect, which basically keeps track of reactive variable now, and if the hour of the current timeline item is not equal to the hour of the current date, in that case, we're stopping the stopwatch by executing stop timeline item timer function. But the thing is that this reactive variable now only updates every second while we are being on the timeline page, because on the timeline page we start the timer to keep track of the date changes in reactive variable now, and we're doing this by calling start current date timer inside of this onActivated hook, and this onActivated hook is only triggered whenever we open timeline page. And if we are leaving the timeline page, another hook on deactivated gets triggered, and in here we're basically stopping the timer, which keeps track of the date changes. So to make things easier, I'm actually proposing to never stop the timer which updates current date. So we don't need to use this on deactivated hook in here, because we are never going to stop current date timer. And now we don't need to also start timer on this timeline page, because we're going to do it right after our application gets loaded. We're only going to execute scroll to current hour in this onActivated hook. Let's also remove all unused import statements and then switch over to main.js, and right here we're going to start current date timer by calling start current date timer function like this. So that means when our application is loaded, we're going to start current date timer, which is basically going to update reactive variable now every second. And just because we're never going to stop this timer, there is no reason to keep stop current date timer function around. We can remove this function from here, and since we're never going to use the reference to the timer which is stored inside current date timer variable, we can remove this variable declaration as well as this assignment to this variable. And also another simplification we can do in here is basically remove this statement which resets reactive variable now, because this start current date timer is only going to be called once on the initial page load, so there is no need to actually reset reactive variable now. And just to improve a little bit code organization in this module, let's just take all this definition of computed properties as well as the reactive variable now and move all of that to the top of the file so that we will have all definitions of our state first, and then all functions will be defined. So now let's see what is going to happen in the browser. First of all, I'll check if our timer is stopped automatically whenever we are being on the timeline page. As we can see, it worked. And now I'm gonna do the same by starting the timer. But this time I'm gonna switch the page. And as we can see, the time is no longer updating because the current hour was changed, and therefore stopwatch was automatically stopped. So this bug is fixed, but there is actually one more which we will work on in the next lesson. And for now I'm going to comment out this code, which modifies current date object, because we are still going to do current date modifications in the next lesson in order to fix another bug. Link to the source code of this project will be in the video description.